Welcome to XboxCorner, my name is Alex and today we're taking a look at ELEX II on the Xbox Series X. This video it's a performance review, so an introduction to the game, what to expect, the contained mechanics, and then generally how I've enjoyed it 10 hours in and how it looks and performs. So with that luck, hit subscribe, join us here on XboxCorner for reviews, deals, graphical comparisons and Game Pass breakdowns weekly, and let's get started. Story here then follows a series protagonist, Jax. He was in the first game, a rough game honestly, but a bit of a gem in my eyes. While the game's first events are referenced then, they are not needed to jump in here. In the first game you defeated what was known as the hybrid, established via flashbacks that threatened the world of Magalan, your home. Now a new threat arrives though that leverages Dark Elix, a source of power in this world, though typically and traditionally it is called just Elix. This is obviously a variation. To defeat this enemy though, you need to ready up, partner with surrounding factions, save your family, and kill a whole host of enemies. Generally the story, it seems to be good stuff. While the writing can be a little bit stiff at points, it's all kind of part of the charm with this particular studio's releases. It's self-described as a vintage style open world RPG, and you definitely feel that in the story as well. The main storyline then will of course always be a focus, but expect a ton of side quests and conflicting factions to dive into as you aim to protect the Bastion, your home base and kind of your point of operations. I just actually got to the first attack on the base so far, and I've really been enjoying the plot, twists and side quests. So gameplay on this comes from a studio known as Piranha Bytes. I would describe them as a team with a love it or hate it roster of games, and while they can be a little, I guess, janky in a sense, it all for some reason comes together for me and kind of plays into the charm. You know, you can see the shortcomings for what is a clearly smaller team with smaller budget, but it absolutely appeals, and I've been a fan ever since I stumbled upon their Risen series. There's something incredibly addictive about the formula, and for me so far that's very much again the case here. I'll say it now, this will absolutely get mixed reviews. It's always kind of the case with their output, but they know their audience, and this feels very much in line with what fans will expect. Now the gameplay, it is an action RPG first of all in what is a decently sized open world, and the core gameplay I'd describe as completing main and side quests, battling it out, collecting inventory, and then a whole lot of dialogue and back and forth between locations. It definitely has a lot of systems to learn, as well as a lot of things going on at the same time. Some explained definitely better than others, but fans of the genre should be comfortable in this world. In the opening 10 hours that I've experienced, I've been meeting multiple factions in the world, some friends, some foe. I've been starting to talk them into joining forces with me, the only path to victory here, and then also reinforcing the Bastion, your base, by completing these I guess mini quests. All of these systems are in the introduction. It's going to make you go through a number of locations. Your experience, of course, it may vary dependent on the choices you make. You see, this is a game, it gives you the freedom to complete missions as you please, alongside then making moral decisions that pack consequences, or at least consequences on the relationships you have with those around you. For me though, this took me from overgrown roads with abandoned cars. Yes, it's got that kind of air of post-apocalyptic Earth to it. Snowy mountains where I nearly froze to death, multiple castle-like structures, and then a world that is essentially underground. It's absolutely not an easy game though if you make a few unwise decisions. Think like wandering in the wrong direction or maybe jumping to a quest you're not quite ready for. My suggestion, you'll need to make a few decisions relatively early into the game. What faction will you join? That will help level you up, but then also complete as many quests and slay as many native and alien monsters as possible. The reason for this, it earns you action points which can be assigned to your character. Think attribute, strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, and cunning. This will help you in this journey, whether it's wielding certain weapons or maybe, I guess picking locks or stealing items in this world. Alongside the action points then, you'll also learn skill points. These can be assigned to abilities, though what's a little bit more unusual here, it's not a traditional skill tree, rather you actually need to find friendlies who are experts in these areas to train you once you have the necessary points so they can, I guess, be teachers. The final main source of menu management then will be inventory. There's a whole lot to find in this world: weapons, equipment, clothing, buffer items, food, health packs, magic, and the list goes on and on. Everywhere you turn there is something to pick up or even steal should the situation present itself. This in turn then of course leads into crafting as well, whether that's say cooking for yourself or maybe building out a new weapon. Maybe you'll work with an NPC in this world to build out, let's say, some sort of super armor. The real pleasure with this game though, the exploration and the combat, it feels like a game made pre the World of Souls, but not necessarily in a bad way, just a little bit more clunky and simplistic. You will manage a stamina bar, but enemies are nowhere near the level of intelligence you may expect. It's just fun honestly as you weave between their attacks, and it's a relatively simple control scheme, you know, kick, attack, defend, and yeah, then you've got a dodge roll as well. You'll also then potentially be able to harness magic dependent on how you shape your character, you know, the build you go for. And the weapons, they go everywhere from swords to battle axes to shotguns to alien weaponry. It almost feels like a Fallout style experience at times, where the combat's not quite as developed I guess, but that kind of plays into their description, a vintage open world RPG. Exploration then, for the most part, it will be on foot, but with progression you will unlock handy teleport locations which you can leverage from anywhere on the map. Fast travel, always a good thing, and then a jetpack as well. I absolutely love the jetpack. By the end of the game you'll basically have the ability to fly, but even initially it means you can jump off of like huge cliffs with no fear for your life, as long as you have some juice in that pack, something that kind of regenerates quickly though never in mid-air. The game's world map then as well, it definitely takes advantage of this jetpack system because there's a ton of verticality in here. Often I'd be standing before huge mountains or caverns at my feet. Issues wise then, this is kind of where the janky descriptor comes in. Sometimes hits will register on both you and enemies that have shifted out of your range. Likewise, you'll be walking and your character will be stepping up a ledge and there's no ledge around you. Cutscenes can get a little bit weird, maybe characters are blocked behind trees or even you can see through them. There's small things that are in my eyes that definitely don't, you know, really hurt the overall gameplay experience. It's just something you've got to grow accustomed to as you move into this world, understanding what the game's rules are and what they are not. Overall though, 10 hours in, I'm just having fun, and that's kind of the weird thing with Piranha Bytes. Their issues, I've always found them easy to forgive because it is a genre I absolutely love. Graphically then, on the Series X, I'll tell you now if you didn't know this for yourselves already, graphics weren't high up on their list of aims. It looks better than any game they've ever made, and no question about it, but it's still definitely borderline kind of 4K last gen. Characters are particularly lifeless and for sure a reminder of what we would see in, let's say, Fallout or Elder Scrolls, and your child is particularly creepy as seen here. Animations for battle are pretty nice though, as is the variety in enemy design. You'll see everything from Mad Max style warriors to wildlife to aliens to the local dinosaurs that roam this land. The velociraptors, they are a particularly nasty bunch at first that I suggest you steer clear of, unlike the unwise decision that I made. For the good finally, the landscape, I really like the variety. As I said, you'll go everywhere from fields to snow, and just occasionally the game will grab you and say, look, I'm trying my best here to be next gen, because a few moments they definitely stopped me in my tracks as I was looking out over this world. It's also worth pointing out here as well, it's a relatively big world. I'm curious to see how optimization is on the base Xbox One, but the frame rate here on the Series X seemed to be perfect from this initial 10 hours, and I traversed a good percentage of the landscape. Outside of creepy character models then, generally for issues the game lacks detail. It's clear where the heavy texture work was output, and smaller locations at times, you can also tell they've kind of been overlooked. Also then, the game, it suffers from pop-in. Given the size of the map, I presume it's loading in as you do kind of, progress through it. You'll notice though textures, objects, and especially shadows jumping in the distance. Likewise, you'll occasionally catch like characters loading in as well. I'd never say it's a massive issue, but you will definitely pick up on it as you do progress. Finally, some cutscenes, they seem to be a low resolution, even pixelated, and it's for sure not native 4K, even if it is outputting 4K in these moments. So audio finally, and it's okay, the sound effects are decent for the most part, even if they can get a little bit repetitive. One thing that was driving me a little bit crazy, you'll have characters that can team up with you and follow you, and one, like me, had a jetpack, and the audio loop of that jetpack just repeats constantly. The music then is good, it's not particularly memorable, but it reinforces each scene, and of course the action. The voice acting to wrap up audio, and honestly, given the expressionless looks on these characters' faces, it works, but I wouldn't call it AAA. Remember, everything here, from what I can see, is fully voice acted, and I'd describe the quality as varying, but you know, kudos for going out and putting all of this effort in. There's some good though, some weak, but mostly I'd say it kind of falls somewhere in between. Jax, for example, our lead, has his moments to shine, but then there's others where basically he shows all of the emotion of an inanimate object. So overall, look, what I've seen so far of ELEX II I've liked. I never came here for a visual demo disc from my Xbox Series X. It is a small indie studio who have always had big ideas in the sense of scope, and they very much continue that kind of idea. What I will give them though is performance-wise, it seems to be running great on the Series X with no frame rate stutters or anything else that I could notice this far in. Well, I can't say it's a must-play or anything else, given, again, I'm around 10 hours into a game that could no doubt clock near 100 hours. I'll at least say this, it has me intrigued. I'll absolutely be seeing this story through. The way I see this though, it's a time capsule to the action RPGs of the past, but with a few modern sensibilities packed in. The first, it was a bit of a cult hit though, and I am fully behind it getting now this second outing. It is not though without its issues, but I think I put it best in the video earlier. I can still find the charm, but no doubt reviews will be all over the place. That kind of seems to be the Piranha Bytes way, so do be aware of that before jumping in. Will you be adding this one to the library then, or holding onto that cache? I'm curious if there's any Risen fans out there. Let me know in the comments down below. Can't say I see too many of us floating around in the comments on YouTube. With that then though, look, hit subscribe, join us here on XboxCorner for reviews, deals, graphical comparisons, and Game Pass breakdowns weekly, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.